The power of imagination. The power of imagination is probably the most fun power to explore. This is the 6th month. It's June. This is our 6th of the 12 powers that we're exploring together as we at the beginning of the year set aside one Sunday a month to delve deeper into one of the 12 powers as defined by Charles Fillmore, co-founder of the Unity Movement. So today is imagination. What is the metaphysical interpretation of imagination? This is from The Revealing Word by Charles Fillmore. The faculty of mind that images and forms. The power to shape and form thought. Through this power, the formless takes form. With our imagination, we hold ideas and clothe them with substance. So that's one way we can hold imagination, is seeing it as that which clothes, which gives manifestation to our ideas. The imagination has been said to be the scissors of the mind, the scissors that cut the shape for anything. And so there's another vision that we can hold, an image we can hold, our imagination as scissors. That's when we can each see ourselves with that construction paper and those scissors, and where it goes determines what we create. We see it with our minds and then we make it real. Charles Fillmore has said, faith is the perceiving power of the mind linked with the power to shape substance. That power is imagination. One sees with the mind's eye the shape of that about which one is thinking, and the faculty of imagination then produces that shape in substance. So the third or the last vision that we can hold of imagination is one of a bridge. Imagination is the bridge between the spiritual and the material realms. We know that we are both human and divine. And so we can hold imagination as that bridge between that spiritual realm and what we manifest in our world through the power of our consciousness, through the power of our mind. Albert Einstein, whose name alone today means genius, had a lot to say about imagination. I'm going to share a few with you. Knowledge is a map that guides us, while imagination is the territory where we can roam freely and search for answers and opportunities. Imagination knows no restraint and is the power that puts knowledge to use, so we need both knowledge and imagination. He said, I am enough of an artist to draw freely upon my imagination. For imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world. And here's one I think you can see on Truman on a storefront window. It says, imagination is everything. It is the preview of life's coming attractions. That's from Albert Einstein. He said, I have no special talents. I am only passionately curious. Passionately curious. And this last quote caused me to consider curiosity and imagination. And what came to my mind is that curiosity is that big question mark. It's that part of us that urges to know, that seeks to know, that questions why. I almost see myself as this big question mark. And then imagination answers that question in unlimited ways. I mean, imagination roams freely the territory and searches for answers and opportunities. So we have curiosity, the big question mark, and then imagination who seeks to answer. And if we allow it to answer and answer and answer to our heart's delight, if we're not satisfied with the first one, if we do not limit imagination, it will keep answering the question. And as it answers, we come up with more, don't we? We come up with more questions For our heart yearns to know. We are seekers. We are students, every one of us. And we yearn to know more. We yearn to have our questions answered. Charles aligned a disciple with each one of the 12 powers to help us remember the power. And as we've spoken about each month, the 12 powers are just 12 attributes, 12 expressions of the one presence and the one power. Well, when I was a student becoming a licensed Unity teacher, besides all the classes that you take, you then go to Unity Village for a week of grueling testing, psychological testing, and other types of testing. And you have to memorize a lot. A lot. Imagination and Bartholomew, both 11 letters. That's how I remembered it. And then I thought, you've really got to have an imagination to name somebody Bartholomew. You know, we use whatever kind of tricks we can come up with to bring to mind that which we need when we're being tested or when we want to recall something. We don't know a lot about the disciple Bartholomew. Actually, these next few months, we will not know a lot about the disciples that are acquainted or represent a power. For most of the disciples are mentioned in the Bible as a group, and the disciples, and the disciples, and the followers of Jesus. They're very rarely mentioned by name, and it matters not. It truly matters not. But it's fun. It's fun to connect them. It helps us remember the color blue. But today we take that power of imagination and look at it in such a way as to embrace it as ours, perhaps as we have not done so before. And so we turn to Scripture, and we're looking today at 1 Corinthians. And we recall that 1 Corinthians was a letter written by Paul, and that Corinth was the most beloved of the communities that Paul established or was in constant communication with to support their questions. And so it's in 1 Corinthians that we find the most beautiful language of love coming from Paul, which we don't often find in his other letters. But I believe that the community of Corinth opened his heart in such a way, allowed him to imagine a vision of what church community could be like, what followers of Jesus could share. And it is in these letters that we find such expressions of love. And so we're looking at the 14th verse, the 15th chapter. I will pray with my spirit, but I will also pray with my mind. I will sing praises with my spirit, but I will also sing praises with my mind. We honor both the intellect and the heart. Now, when we come into unity, and many of us came into unity because of searching, we come into unity and we find that it is so heart-centered. Many will say that Myrtle Fillmore was the heart of unity, and Charles, her husband, was the mind. And of course, our primary beliefs are on the power of prayer, which is very heart-centered. But we also believe in the power of thought. And so there are both the intellect and the mind and the heart all linked together. It's from our heart, perhaps, that we have the yearning, the question mark. And then the mind, the imagination that answers that question. And we've come to value imagination. It wasn't that many years ago that children were told that they needed to be quiet. And if they told stories, if they made up stories, they were hushed about that. It was squashed. And if they were intuitive, which all children are, in a family that didn't honor being intuitive, that was quieted as well. And things have changed somewhat today. We honor the gift of imagination. We honor that aspect of one another, especially in children. But we also do in adults. We find all ways to play today that were not available to, say, our parents. We find ways to express ourselves. You don't have to be an accomplished artist or an accomplished writer to paint or to write, to open your heart. Our Treat Yourself Tuesdays every week is always something different, some way to get out of the box. We value creativity in a way that we haven't in the past. And look at all that has been imagined and then produced for our lives just in the last 30, 35 years. The word laptop didn't exist. Wi-Fi, internet. Some will say some of these are not so much a blessing. I understand that. But then there's things like Google Maps. Google everything. Can't live without that. There's things that we have available today, tools that we have available today, laser surgery, portable defibrillators, things that save our lives, DNA testing, because someone imagined. Someone imagined. Imagination is a great gift. Today we celebrate Unite with Pride. Imagine that 50 years ago. Someone imagined we should not have slaves, we should not sell slaves. Someone imagined maybe women could vote. Someone imagined perhaps we should be able to marry whoever we wish to marry. Imagination is this beautiful, beautiful gift. Back in the 1980s, there was a psychologist by the name of Dr. Ellen Langer. And she orchestrated an experiment. She created a retreat for several gentlemen who had been in their prime, their physical prime, in the 1950s. This is the 1980s. There were 25, 30 years. She brought these gentlemen together for 5 days. The furniture all looked like the 50s. Across the coffee tables were Saturday Evening Post, Time magazine, black and white television with Walter Cronkite, radio shows, Perry Como. They were encouraged to talk about events as if they were just happening. Mickey Mantle's successes, Khrushchev's visit to the U.S., Fidel Castro's rise in power. For 5 days, they pretended that it was the 1950s. After 5 days, tests were given, the same tests that were given prior to this experiment of height, weight, vision, hearing, memory, flexibility, balance, and the results after 5 days were an improvement of 63%. It was a huge success. A success in showing the power we have within our mind. For when the mind believes, the body will follow. This was demonstrated in a documentary that my husband and I went to see recently at the Tropic from one of the local celebrities, Gene Carper. The title was Monster in the Mind. It's about the disease of Alzheimer's. And in these experiments that were performed, it was proven what we have known but dismissed. We have the power to reverse the aging of our brain through doing things like puzzles, learning a foreign language, taking up a musical instrument, exercising, and even with that, changing it up. You walk every day for 2 miles, change your route. Even when you're driving home, change your route. Now, it's a little harder here, I get that. But it's just a little harder. Our brains need to be excited. They need to be awakened. They need to see new things. And so if you've always passed this way, Take the long way. Take a different way. Excite your brain. And the tests are conclusive. We can reverse the aging of our brain when we believe the body will follow. So challenge yourself. Imagine the life you want. Not only imagine, but embrace. Open your heart to the possibility and remember what we have been taught. Greater things than these shall you do. Imagine. God bless you. Thank you.